Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Sifu Anthony here from Flowing Zen, and I believe I am live. So we're going to have a fun little Q&A about Qigong and Tai Chi and meditation and Kung Fu and whatever you like. This is not my first live webinar by any means, but it is my first live YouTube. So please bear with me as I sort of get the hang of the technology and all of that. It looks like there's a few people here. So if you are here and I am actually live, we started a little bit early. Can you please just say something in the chat window so that I can see it and we can double check my mic and all of that good stuff. So if you're here and you can hear me, go ahead and let's see. Oh, good. Hi, Jonathan. So I guess I am live. Thank you for the feedback. That was helpful. Hi, Rhonda. Thanks. Okay, awesome. So it is working. Good to know. And I believe my microphone is working, which is important. And my video is working too. So we've got about 4 minutes until people pop in. So if you have a question and you're here ready, go ahead and put it in the chat window. I'll keep an eye on the chat window. And I'll do my best. I'm a one-man show here right now. And so I'm going to watch the comments as best as I can, and that's where we'll do the questions. And if I miss a question for some reason, please just repost it for me, because sometimes they go by fast. We'll see. I have no idea how many people are going to show up today. We'll see. But let me talk very briefly about why I think that asking questions is so important. So I've said this for years, and this is how I learned these arts as well, with a lot of question asking, which is not necessarily traditional, at least not at the first level. Traditionally, Chinese teachers were very standoffish with new students. Later, once you became like what they call an inner chamber disciple or an inner circle disciple, you would get more Q&A time with the teacher. And it's really important in learning these arts, and this is a traditional aspect of these arts that I think is important in the 21st century. But here's the interesting thing. In the research on this subject about sort of learning and cognitive performance and things like this, it really seems to be that asking questions or the forming questions in your mind helps to learn the material in a new way. So it makes you an active participant in the material rather than just sitting back and watching. So this is another reason why I really strongly encourage students to ask questions. I've been doing Q&As like this for my whole teaching career. So since 2005, I've been teaching these arts, and then I taught other arts before that. So I used to teach the violin, for example, and there's Q&A built into private violin lessons. I used to teach karate, and even though karate was much stricter, the way that I was taught and the way that I taught, there was still a lot of Q&A there. It was, I would spend time with the students and answer their questions. So anyway, that's my short little blurb on why I think it is so important to ask questions. So please go ahead and ask questions. And I'm not sure how YouTube works, actually. I think that if you ask a question, even in the replay, I'm pretty sure I get a notification, in which case I'll do my best to answer it. So that's how it works on Facebook. That's what I've done in the past. So if you're watching the replay later and you still have a question or a follow-up question, which is sometimes more interesting than the original question. So sometimes the thread of discussion with the original question leads us someplace interesting, and you have a follow-up question, so type that in. And then I believe I will get a notification and I can answer it later. Of course, I'll have to answer it through the comments, but okay, well, that works just as well. For those of you who are new to Flowing Zen, this is how I teach. I do this with my students every month. We sometimes use different platforms. Usually we use something called Zoom, but I do this on Facebook. I'm just new to doing it on YouTube for whatever reason. There's always the latest technology to try out, and a bunch of students were asking for me to do it on YouTube. So here I am. Here I am on YouTube live, testing it out. We'll just have some fun and see how it goes. So let me just check the comments here. Say hi if you're just joining us. And it's actually fun for me to know where you're coming from. So why don't you say hello and also tell me where you are right now. I'm in Florida right now, and the weather's pretty beautiful in Florida this time of year. So tell me where you are and where you're tuning in from. So let's see. I'm going to put on my glasses for this. So when I do my eye exercise, those of you who've taken my course on the eye exercises, when I do my eye exercises diligently, I don't need stronger glasses. I've resigned myself. These are 1-power readers, one-time magnification. And I've resigned myself to only going as far as using these. If my eyes get worse, I go do the exercises more diligently, and it always seems to work. And I've been using these for a while. I don't plan on going to 1.5 or 2 times magnification, but these help me with comments sometimes. Oh, hey, Pablo. Nice to see you here. Jojo. Oh, so you had a TBI, Jojo, and the Qigong that I'm teaching is helping you. That's great. So glad to hear it. Thanks for telling me too. Sometimes I'm the last to hear. Maybe you did tell me, but I don't remember it specifically. But it's so funny. My students very often get these great results, and I'm like the last one to know. Sometimes it's just the nature of the beast that they just didn't think to tell me. And of course, I want to hear too. That's why I do this. It's my job, if you can call it a job. This is my mission, my passion, my life is meaningful to me because I want to help you get the kind of results that I've gotten with Qigong. So it's always nice to hear. Let's see. So, Barbara, you did too. You also had a TBI. I didn't realize that. That's good news. Again, I didn't realize that. Barbara, I know you, of course. And Sonia, nice to see you here. Oh, Barb, you're in Sarasota. Okay, good. So you're close. Let's see. Hi, Holly, a.k.a. Elizabeth. Stuart, hi, nice to see you here as well. So some of you, those of you who are new to Flowing Zen, or if you're just watching and not participating yet, some of these students, I know them personally, like I've met them, either I've taught them at my studio, which is now closed, but my studio in Gainesville, Florida, or I've met them in Costa Rica, or some of them I just know from my online programs, in which case I do connect with my students, so I do get to know them. But if you don't know me or I don't know you, well, okay, so we can get to know each other, but don't be confused as to why I know some of these students or why they know me so well. I do like to develop relationships with my students. I think that's an important part of learning these arts. Let's see, Western Canada, nice to see you, Jane. Right, Sonia, you're in Zagreb in Croatia, nice. Scotland, Paul, nice to see you, Paul. Anne is in the UK, in London. Michael's in SoCal. Great, so keep saying hello and telling me where you're from, and then if someone wants to put in their first question, sometimes it takes a little courage. Please go ahead and post your first question. The topics available, the topics that I claim expertise in are Qigong, Tai Chi. I'll say Kung Fu, even though Tai Chi is a form of Kung Fu. So not all styles of Kung Fu am I an expert in, but I can definitely speak broadly onto the subject of Kung Fu and martial arts, Chinese medicine, and meditation as well. So please formulate a question or a thought, or sometimes you can just ask me, if you don't have a clear question, you can just ask me to speak on a subject. Here's what my students know, students who've been working with me for a while. I don't know what I know. There's a lot crammed up in here, or the Chinese would point to here, point to the heart, because that's where they feel a lot of the essence is the heart. They call it the heart mind, really. So it's not just up here, but in here as well. There's a lot up here, a lot of knowledge I've gained over the last 25 years. But until you ask questions, I am not always sure how to bring it out. And then, of course, by asking a question, I'm sort of trying to address it not only to a modern audience, but to you specifically as best as I can. And then, of course, we can do follow-ups, and I can see if I can maybe phrase the answer in a way that helps you to really grasp it, rather than just, here's the one answer. Answers don't work like that. It's about helping you to understand the essence of what we're talking about, whatever that is, the subject. Okay, Devon, UK, nice. Let's see. St. Petersburg, is that St. Petersburg, Florida, or St. Petersburg, Russia? Right? St. Petersburg, Florida is very close to me, and I've taught there many times, but who knows? Now that I teach online, it could be anywhere. Okay, here's our first real question that I can see. And by the way, I think if you lose a connection, you can just sort of rejoin it, and see if it works better the next time. Okay, so Michael's question is not to get stuck in complexities, but when envisioning moving qi for a beginner, how should one envision a snapshot in time of moving qi? Okay, so it's an interesting question, and I'll try to tackle it to start here. So first of all, what is qi? If you're new to this whole Qigong thing, which is great. If you're totally new to Qigong, then good. I really try to teach in a way that is accessible to fresh beginners, people who know absolutely nothing about Qigong, but are interested in self-healing. So qi is your vital energy, your life force. It's the basic ingredient in Qigong. It's also a key ingredient in Tai Chi or Tai Chi Chuan. It's the same ingredient in acupuncture and Chinese herbal medicine. And Michael's question is talking about moving the qi, or in my terminology, I would call it directing the qi. Maybe, depending on what we're talking about. I'm not sure if we're talking about the same thing, Michael. In my school, in order to direct the qi and also to circulate the qi, these are key skills in Qigong and in self-healing. I first and foremost emphasize what I call entering Zen. Well, I'm not the only one to call it. That's a classical term. In Chinese, it's Rujing, which really means entering stillness. But the simple explanation of Rujing or entering Zen is entering into a meditative state of mind before we do our various Qigong exercises. Right now, I'm demonstrating something called pushing mountain. I'm sitting, of course, I could get up and do it. So, oh, sorry, buddy. This is an exercise called pushing mountains. So and that's upward dog that you see right there. If I'm doing something like that, rather than just do the movements, I emphasize breathing, of course, and also this thing called entering Zen. Stick with me, Michael. I'm going to answer your question. So the idea is that until you get very good at entering Zen, until you develop some meditative skill, you don't need to worry about directing the qi. That's a more advanced skill, and you're almost always going to be better served by saving it for later. Here's why. Here's the problem. If you're talking about sending qi to the palms or directing qi to an organ, and if you're not sure about qi yet and you're skeptical, totally fine. I was skeptical in the beginning, and I kind of like skeptics because they ask interesting questions. And all of this can be explained. I'm using the term qi now, but we could use other terminology. We could use much more Western terminology if we needed to. But when we're talking about moving qi like that or directing qi, there's a danger of becoming too intellectual, of using the frontal cortex, of using your monkey mind, we call it in the Zen terms. And that's a real danger, and that's going to limit all of our benefits in Qigong. So when we move qi or direct qi, we have to absolutely be firmly rooted in a Zen state of mind. And then it's much easier and much more effective to move the qi. So your question was when envisioning moving qi, or you use the word envisioning, we would often use the term visualization. How should one do it? Well, first and foremost, enter Zen. And then I don't want to give away too much because I don't want you guys trying it to get carried away. In some of my more advanced classes, all I'll say is this, that once we are skillful at entering Zen, moving the qi or the awareness, you move the awareness first and then the qi follows, to any part of the body or any organ becomes quite easy. And if you're skeptical and you're not sure if these things are possible, with practice, it becomes obvious. You can move your awareness quite easily, and sometimes it's quite easy to feel qi as a result of that. Okay, so I hope I answered your question, Michael. You can ask a follow-up question. Let me move on to the next question I see here. Paul asks, by the way, when I finish with a question, I'm finished for the moment, but if you have more or somebody else has a follow-up, please go ahead and ask, and then I'll come to it when I get to it. Okay, Paul asks, do you recommend a stretching period warm-up before starting a Qigong set, or do you consider the Qigong set as a warm-up and exercise all in one? Really good question. It's funny, I don't think I've had this question in a little while. I'm trying to think of the last time I had this question. Anyway, it's a good question, and here's my answer. So this answer applies to flowing Zen Qigong, which is the style of Qigong that I teach. Different teachers might have different answers. So for example, there are a lot of different Qigong sets out there. So some sets may require warm-up. Warm-up is really a Western term. It doesn't really exist in the Eastern concept or the traditional Qigong and Tai Chi concept. The closest they would come to is something like and I'm making this up, but they would, it would be like a Qi up. They would be talking about getting the Qi or the energy flowing. So in that sense, most traditional sets, they wouldn't warm up beforehand. The Qigong itself would do it. And that's more akin to my approach, is that the Qigong itself is going to loosen us up, get the blood flowing, get the Qi flowing. In fact, it's the whole point of Qigong. However, some sets, you might need to do certain Qigong exercises before you do those sets. So for example, an obvious example that pops to mind, and this is a short set, but it is a set. Hold on a second. Let me just adjust my doing the best I can with the camera here. You can only do so much with these webcams. But a Qigong set called One Finger Shooting Zen, which is a martial Qigong set, comes from the Shaolin tradition. I'm going to talk, so I can't really do it, but it looks something like this, and I'm going to keep doing it as I talk. But it's in a horse stance. It involves some sounds and some forceful shooting techniques. The stance itself is, a little bit athletic, not the most sort of difficult thing that you could do, but it's a little bit athletic. And same thing with the arms, or you can't see it from here, but I'm using some force. So the next step, for example, is so I'm relaxed, but I'm using some force in it, and the set goes on. There's a few more sequences to it. So you might want to do some Qigong exercises before that. So for example, I shouldn't have sat down. Here we go again. Typically, we would do something like lifting the sky beforehand to warm up, to get the Qi flowing. And then if the legs are tense and you want to loosen them up, we might do something like rotating knees. I don't know if you can see my feet, but okay, here we go. And I'm not teaching right now. This is not instructional. I'm just giving you an idea. So we might want to warm up the legs and the knees before doing that. Those of you who are new to my teaching, when I am teaching an exercise, I'm very systematic. I don't do it like that. I'm just sort of visually answering the question. So, Paul, the simple answer is that for most of the Qigong I teach, we're selecting the exercises out of order anyway. We're not doing them in a classical order. We're picking and choosing based on what feels good and also the order that I teach them in. And you can select Qigong exercises to warm up. In fact, a lot of the Tai Chi that's out there is actually Qigong. In fact, a lot of the research studies on Tai Chi, they say Tai Chi in the studies, they're actually Qigong. And this is not just speculation. I know this for a fact because one of the researchers I know one of the researchers in a lot of these studies, and he told me. So anyway, the fact is that a lot of that warm-up that people do in Tai Chi classes is Qigong. So that's how I teach. I teach that we can use the Qigong itself as a warm-up. We can use really smart exercises, smart, intelligent, efficient Qigong exercises that cover a lot of ground. They don't just warm up the muscles, but they get the Qi flowing and they get us into a meditative flow. So we can sort of kill more than one bird with a stone by using Qigong as a warm-up. Now, if we're talking about doing something like a Tai Chi set or a Kung Fu set, we might need to use some Qigong to loosen up before doing the set. So for example, this is another Qigong exercise called don't get scared, but this is called 3 levels down to earth. Basically an air squat, for those of you who know air squats, so just basically squatting all the way down, all the way back up. That's one of the 18 Lohan hands. And it's a good exercise to do before doing a vigorous Kung Fu set. For example, if I'm going to do some Shaolin Kung Fu, I might do lifting the sky, which I demonstrated, rotating knees, and that one. And that'll get me sort of loosened up, and then I'm ready for my Kung Fu set, and I'm ready to go. But all of that is Qigong. It's not a warm-up. Okay, let me catch up here to the comments. Paul, I hope I answered your question. Andrew, I'm not sure I understand your question. You're asking something about astral projection, which is not my area of expertise. So I'm not sure what your question is, but if it's something about astral projection, that I don't really know how to answer it. So it's not really my expertise. Let's see. Pablo asks, was hoping you could share some thoughts on developing new forms changes versus the traditional forms only approach to Kung Fu. Yeah, of course, that's a good question. So Pablo's an old friend of mine and an old classmate and experienced practitioner. If you ever get a chance to work with him. He's very skillful. I think he's knows the answer to this question already. I think you already know, buddy, but I'm going to answer it the way that I think that will make sense to this crowd. So a lot of people in the world of Qigong, Tai Chi, Kung Fu, all of these overlap. They get very wrapped up in traditional forms, right? And there's this idea in their heads that Pablo and I know is not true because we've been doing this for many, many years. There's this idea in people's heads that these forms are, sort of written on some sacred scroll and have been unchanged for decades or hundreds of years or even thousands of years. And that is simply not true. That's not how the martial arts work. That's not how Qigong works. Now, for example, the basic Qigong set that I teach, the 18 Law in Hands, is a historical and classical set. And people often want to know, is this set the way that Bodhidharma taught it in the 6th century AD? There's nobody on the planet that can answer that question for you. Nobody knows. Even when we have good historical records, it's very hard to tell exactly what went on. And with arts like Qigong, Kung Fu, Tai Chi, the records were largely oral. It's a very strong oral tradition, so master to disciple. We do have lots of records, written historical records. We have some drawings, some images, things like that. But these are static images. So for example, the 8 Brocades is a famous Qigong set, and we have old images of these drawings, and they're terrible drawings, and there's no way to look at that drawing and say, see, this is the exact way to do it. All you can do is speculate. So in the modern world, in the 21st century, I think it's getting worse. There's this idea that this is the traditional form and you can't change it. And that's absolute nonsense. So for example, it's funny, when I named my style of Qigong, Flowing Zen Qigong, this was after I made a break from my teacher of 17 years, my main teacher. That's another issue we'll discuss another time. I broke with him over a scandal. Anyway, that's an ethical issue, is the reason why I felt that it was, there were some ethical problems there that I couldn't reconcile, so I left. But when I broke with him, I didn't feel comfortable using the name of his style of Qigong, or the style that I inherited, because the truth is, even though I was a lineage disciple in that main style for many years, I've learned Qigong from many different teachers, and I can't say I'm only doing this style of Qigong or only doing that one. So I felt like I should create a new name for my style of Qigong so I wouldn't be disingenuous. And so I just decided to call it Flowing Zen Qigong. It made sense. I was already, Flowing Zen is my business, my website, made sense. When I did that, I wrote a long blog post about that. And I said, okay, so here's the new name of what I teach, Flowing Zen Qigong. I got an email from somebody that said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something like, only an arrogant American would invent his own style of Qigong. I'm going to stick to traditional forms like Shiba Shi, and what was the other one he mentioned? Can't remember. Maybe it was Spring Forest Qigong. No, Chilel or something like that, Qigong. And if you don't get the joke, he was yelling at me for creating, really just naming or codifying my own Qigong style, and he was preferring to practice traditional forms. So Shiba Shi, I'll get the dates wrong, but it was invented in the 1970s, and then Chilel, I think, was invented in the 1990s. And of course, just like me, these styles were based on traditional Qigong forms and instruction and all of that. But what he thought was a traditional form was invented in the modern era. So it was just a little bit ironic that he was criticizing me. Of course, part of the problem is that in the world, and this is actually a big factor, a lot of people think that it's okay for Chinese masters or Asian masters to invent new forms. But when people like me invent them, then they get all, angry. So for example, Tien Ching is a famous Tai Chi teacher. So his famous 37-step form, he invented that, whatever year that was. Now it's like a very well-established form, but people forget that he invented it in, the 1950s or the 1960s as a teaching tool for his students. The Yang style forms that most people practice are variations on a theme. So the 24 pattern form, which is something that I teach in the Yang style Tai Chi, that's a modern invention. So anyway, let me get back to Pablo's question. Is it okay to sort of modify or adjust or even gasp invent new styles. Sorry, not new styles, but that's another issue, but it's the same basic topic. To invent new forms of Kung Fu? Absolutely. That's a living art. We are artists first and foremost, right? We are practicing an art. We are not just zealots following in somebody else's footsteps. And that's the famous Zen saying, which I think applies here. Seek not to follow in the footsteps of the old masters, seek what they sought. So that's very good advice. I mean, and like Pablo, I know you know this, and I know you do the same thing. You are seeking what they sought. You've been doing that largely your whole career in these arts. I'm doing the same thing. I'm seeking the essence of Qigong, of Tai Chi or Tai Chi Chuan, of meditation, of Zen. I'm seeking the essence of these arts. And, I follow traditions, but then sometimes I follow another path or my own path in order to make sense of it. The idea that you can only achieve skill in these arts through traditional paths, through following a strict tradition, is nonsense. And there's proof. The proof is that you can look at some very, very good traditions, lineages there's some famous masters in those lineages. And then you look down a couple generations and look at the teachers or the advanced students. And if everybody's being honest, some of those people are not very good. Something got lost somewhere. And presumably those people were following the method. So either they needed a new method or they needed something else. Something didn't work for that student. I don't think you can just blame it on the student. I think sometimes it's the methodology. But sometimes we need to invent new methods, new forms, new ways of looking at these arts. Ultimately, a lot of these arts are based on principles. So Tai Chi is a principle-based art. We have a lot of different principles, like loosen the waist, the shun rising, coordinate top and bottom. These are principles that transcend the various different styles and forms of Tai Chi. The same thing with Qigong. We have principles. We have principles of softness, of breathing, of mindfulness that apply to many, many different schools of Qigong, regardless of the forms. So I hope I answered your question. Maybe I answered it in too much depth, Pablo, but I think you follow what I'm saying. And I hope that was helpful and understandable to other people as well. Okay, let me move on here. Let's see, St. Petersburg, Florida. Okay, thanks for the clarification. I had asked earlier whether it was St. Petersburg, Florida, or Russia. I've been to one and not the other one. So nice to see you. Beautiful day here in Gainesville. I assume it's a beautiful day in St. Petersburg and Clearwater down there as well. Let me see, where are we with the questions? Let's see. Is this a comment or a question? Let's see. I'm in St. Louis. I think Qigong and your approach are excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm just struggling to commit. I love to walk, enjoy yoga, somatics. My work schedule as a caregiver is sometimes grueling. Okay, well, I'm not sure how to say your name, Maginel, or Maginel. I'm not sure how to say it. Please correct me. I do like to say people's names correctly. So welcome to the club. Really, you use the word commitment, and that's part of it. It's also a willpower or a discipline issue. When I first started teaching Qigong, I thought, great, all I do is teach. This art is amazing. All I do is teach it, and then people will practice, right? And I was an idiot because, first of all, that's naive. All teachers know that it's much more complicated than that. Second of all, that's not what worked for me. I struggled too in the beginning, so why would I expect students to just suddenly hit the ground running with their art? I don't have a simple answer for you, except that this is a common problem with thousands of my students, and it's a problem that comes up over and over, and it will never stop coming up. I will be talking about the issue of discipline, commitment, willpower for the rest of my teaching career because it's the human condition. It's hard, and in the 21st century, it's maybe harder than ever because the joke is among my students is that, in the classical times, they didn't have Facebook or YouTube, they didn't have these distractions so they could practice. Oh, by the way, back on the discussion of the traditional stuff, here's a funny thing. This came up in a recent discussion. People often say, oh, I want to practice the traditional way. I've answered that question in many ways. No, you don't. You don't want to practice the traditional way. It's awful. But also stop pretending that you are practicing the traditional way unless you're practicing for 5 or 6 hours a day, plus doing sitting meditation. Come on, folks. None of us, myself included, the most I've ever done regularly, honestly, like this is the honest answer, the honest truth, the most I've ever practiced regularly is 3 hours a day but that was consistently for maybe about a year that I did that. And then most of my time was about 2 hours. I would average around 2 hours, which over the long run, if you look at most practitioners of these arts, to do 2 hours a day, every day, consistently for 20-something years, that puts me in the category of an expert. But do I practice the traditional way? God, no. No way. They practiced so much more than us. So don't pretend that you're practicing traditionally when you're doing, a half or a third as much as they did in traditional times. You can't practice the traditional way without getting those hours in, and the honest truth is very few of us do that. If you do 5 or 6 hours a day, more power to you. You're an amazing specimen. I applaud your diligence. I don't know how you do it in this modern world. The only way I get in 6 hours is if I include my teaching, which is another discussion. But I do somewhere between 1 and 3 hours a day. That's what I do. Okay, back to the other question. So commitment, Maginal, is an ongoing subject. I'm always throwing new ideas at my students, using modern technology, for example. Something as simple as using your iPhone as a reminder. Like you can just tell Siri, hey, remind me to practice. To using more traditional methods, like I've talked about, the incense trick method. I have some handy right here. This is Japanese incense. I've blogged about this, and lighting incense sticks, especially these Japanese ones, because the cool thing about these is you can break them and get different time. It doesn't last quite as long, but we're going to use the methods that I've already talked about. I'll come up with new methods. This is why I think a community is important, because once you join a community of like-minded practitioners, you realize that this is a common problem. And everybody's probably going to face this sooner or later. Nobody practices these arts for a long time without addressing this issue one way or another. So it's a common problem. So that's my answer for now. Okay, next question. Isabel. When I try to feel Dan Tien, I often feel the tingling closer to the spine. Is this part of the Dan Tien or something else? So I'm going to get up and clarify. It'll be hard for me to get a follow-up question, but I'm going to guess that so Dan Tien is down here. So here's my belly button, and Dan Tien is here, and then inside the body button. So if it was inside, it's inside a little bit, but it's not a little spot. It's more like a big sphere. So if it's a sphere, it's somewhere around here and below my belly button, right? But then you have Mingmen, which is on the back, and it's almost directly opposite. Hopefully you can see that. Here's my belly button, and here's right on my back, my spine. If you don't do this, folks, if you take an arrow and push it straight through your belly button, it would emerge right around Mingmen. That is a mnemonic. That is a memory technique. Please do not play around with arrows, folks, but it'll help you to remember it. So Mingmen in Chinese, it translates to the gate of vitality, and it's a super important energy point. And some students actually can feel Mingmen before Dan Tien. So if that's what you're feeling, then that's fantastic. But if you feel tingling really anywhere in that lower area, that's very, very good. Remember, Dan Tien, especially for women, Dan Tien is right about where the uterus is or where it was if you've had it removed. And it takes time. It takes a long time. So for some students, it really takes a long time to feel it. I took many years. My students don't usually take as long as I did. It took me many years to really feel confident that I was feeling something there. Most of my students can feel it within 1 or 2 years, somewhere between 1 to 2 years to 5 years. So it does take patience, but eventually it'll become quite obvious. You'll feel this. It's a poetic way of describing it, but the classics describe a golden pearl of energy. But remember that when they're talking about a pearl, they're talking about a large pearl. So something like bigger, not a tiny little pearl. They're talking about something a little bit bigger, and a Dan Tien. And the metaphysics of that, or the physics of that, I don't understand, but there's definitely a sensation at Dan Tien. But you may be feeling Mingmen, and they feed each other, they relate to each other. Both are acupuncture points. And if that's what you're feeling, fantastic. Okay. Another question. Next question is, and these are great questions. This is fantastic. I'm really enjoying this. This seems to be working just like our Zoom webinar, so I hope this is working for you guys as well. Okay, the question is, how come physical exercises can help emotional blockages? So in the West, we like to differentiate between physical, emotional, mental, and maybe even spiritual. but the truth is there is no separation. And in the Chinese tradition, they knew this. These are words, and the words are not, the map is not the territory. So when you look at a map of the subway system in London or New York, for example, it's not the subway, right? That's not the actual tunnels. And in fact, the map itself is adapted, right? It's not exact, right? It's simplified so that you understand where you're going. It's not to scale. So words are kind of the same. And the distinction between physical and emotional is not as hard as we would like to make it. So when we talk about physical exercise, what is that? What is purely physical exercise? For example, if you're running, but you're running outside and you enjoy running, not everybody does, but let's pretend that you enjoy it, and you get into kind of a zone, this runner zone that they get into, which is a meditative state. And you're breathing fresh air, and you're enjoying the scenery, and you're moving your body, and your blood is flowing. Are we going to pretend that the qi, the vital energy, isn't also flowing? Of course it is. Would I call that Qigong? Maybe. It could be turned into Qigong. Certainly you can use Qigong principles in other things. I think you should practice Qigong, and then it'll be easier to transfer those skills to something like running or playing tennis or whatever. But we can't pretend that there's such thing as a purely physical exercise. Just like we can't pretend that there's something as a purely mental exercise. So sitting meditation, let's say, hang on, let me get my, don't worry, I'm not leaving. Here's my meditation bench. So let's say I'm sitting in sitting meditation. Don't worry, buddy, just demonstrating. And let's say my eyes are closed. I'm doing a specific sitting meditation technique. In Japanese, this is called zazen, and in Chinese, it's called zuochuan. Both just mean sitting meditation. That was shaking the tree. That's a Qigong exercise that he just did. Anyway, so let's pretend I'm doing my sitting meditation. I'm pretty still. I'm doing some internal techniques. I'm breathing. Is this 100% mental? Is the body not involved? Is my posture not somehow part of the equation? What about my breathing? So the answer is that there's just it's hard to defend that idea of a purely physical exercise. So physical exercise, the research is bomb-proof. The research on exercise being beneficial for you is bomb-proof. It is good for you. Humans were designed to move. Exercise is one of the single best things that you can do to not only make changes in your health, but your life. And there is just a tremendous amount of research saying this. And Qigong absolutely counts. I actually did a video blog about this recently. But to just say that, physical exercise or energy exercise or whatever, it's just not true. Any exercise will be better than no exercise. Clearing emotional blockages is, we do that. We move and we release things. Endorphins flow, the blood flows, and we release some of our frustrations. And that's why one of the benefits of exercise. So I guess I didn't answer your question because I didn't answer the why. The why is, in the Chinese tradition, we would say we're moving qi. That's why you can clear emotional blockages, because there's a connection between the physical and emotional, and the meridians, and when we move qi, we move the emotions and we clear emotional blockages. So then in the Eastern tradition, we would say we engage the parasympathetic nervous system maybe after the exercise, or we at least increase vagal tone, the tone of the vagus nerve, and we get the benefits of exercise. We get the blood pumping, the heart pumping, we release endorphins, and this has a cascade effect, and we clear emotional blockages. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Let's see, is there a question here? All I see here is some more internal style of Wing Chun, more so than Ip Man Wing Chun. I'm not sure what to tell you, but if you're asking what that is, I myself studied Cho family, usually spelled C-H-O-E, but sometimes spelled C-H-O. Cho family Wing Chun, which is a different lineage than Ip Man. It's in Southeast Asia. I just studied it briefly, but it was, in my impression, more internal than the way some other people do Wing Chun. But these days, if you want to take an art, something like Wing Chun, which is really a softer style, even though it's very hard, sometimes it could be like, it could be just, I don't know. It can seem very hard, Wing Chun, but it's soft. It was invented by a woman whose teacher was a woman. So, and the reason I mention that is because those arts tend to favor techniques that don't rely on brute strength, which is in the category of softer martial arts, right? If you're smaller and you don't have the brute strength of a big, strong guy, then you're gonna use techniques that favor your build. So what I'm getting at is that just practice Qigong. If you enjoy the Wing Chun you're doing and you have a good teacher, don't worry about whether it's internal or not. This is another big problem in the world of Qigong and internal martial arts is there's no clear line between internal and external. That is nonsense. You can take a lot of arts and make them internal by adding Qigong. And then, of course, we have lots and lots of people. I don't mean to insult people, but this is my honest opinion. There are a lot of people in the Tai Chi world, which is supposed to be an internal art, internal martial art, and it's neither internal, they're not really practicing it as an internal art, nor is it a martial art. So I don't know how we can call it an internal martial art. It's not martial art because they don't practice any martial arts anything. It's got no relation to martial arts anymore. And it's not internal because there's no meditative aspects. They don't really get the chi moving. They don't practice it as an internal art. So this distinction between internal and external is kind of arbitrary. There are internal and external methods. So that's the question. How do you train? So if you're practicing Wing Chun, great. Put some Qigong on the side, get your chi flowing, and then a lot of that will naturally start to bleed into your Wing Chun. Okay, make sense? Or go find a good teacher of internal martial arts in any style. If you can find a good teacher, grab it. Don't be like, oh, well, I really want to learn this style of. You can't be that picky. Choose the teacher. Don't choose. I want to learn Baguazhang, or I want to learn Xingyi Chuan, or any other internal. Li Hua Bafa is like another internal style martial art. Go with the teacher. Learn what they have to teach, and then later you're going to make your own stuff anyway. So do that later. Okay, next question. Do any of the Qigong exercises use resistance or isometrics? Absolutely. We're getting a little bit into the hard style of Qigong, and then we're also getting into martial Qigong, but let me give you an example, a very obvious example of a Qigong. This is from a Qigong set called the 18 Arhats, which I teach. And let's see if I can get it on camera here. Yep, that should work. Okay, this is called Iron Bull Plowing the Field. Okay, so that's from a Qigong set called the 18 Arhats, or that's a modern term. In Chinese, it's the 18 or the Shiba Lohan Gong. I just changed the name because I don't want it to be confused with the 18 Lohan hands. It's a different set. So obviously there's push-ups in there and resistance, right? And don't worry, those of you, if you that's not a beginner's Qigong exercise that I teach. That's much more advanced, and that's something I teach later, and we can adapt it and everything. So please do not let that scare you away from Qigong. Most Qigong is super simple. But the answer is yes. There are heavy weapons in the world of Qigong and Kung Fu. Hang on a second. So this is a real, and I'm going to be careful because it's also sharp. This is a real Dao, or Chinese saber, and very sharp, so I'm going to pay attention here. And I'll tell you this, it's a lot heavier than you think. Most people couldn't even do half of a traditional saber form, which I don't have the room to do it, but it's just swinging around. It's imagine a Kung Fu saber form, just about any version of it. Most people couldn't get halfway through without their shoulders and their forearms burning. A traditional sword is heavier than you think. A Shaolin staff, which is basically a 7-foot stick, but it's quite thick, 1.5 inches, 2 inches, heavy, ideally heavy wood. It's heavier than you would think. Now we're into the realm of Kung Fu, but that would be resistance training. And then there's something called the Tai Chi ball. I don't have one available. I don't have one handy. I can't run and get it. But imagine a weighted ball. And traditionally, they would use like wooden ones, which are very hard to make, or cement or some sort of stone ball. And it's exactly what you would imagine. So you're just sort of doing Tai Chi moves or with the ball, and it's weighted. So imagine there's an actual physical ball in my hand moving around. You can move around in stances, and you can imagine that if you're moving in stances or standing in one leg with that weighted ball, it gets to be extra difficult. And in the modern era, we don't need all those. You don't need a stone or a wooden one. They're too expensive. They have just regular weighted medicine balls, not the soft ones, but the hard ones, anywhere from 2 to 12 or 13 pounds or 14 pounds is easy to find. And those will help a lot. But again, kind of like I was advising people to cross-train, if you really want resistance training, get into the realm of Kung Fu, start doing push-ups, or find some other way to do it. An obvious one. This one I do teach to beginners, although we do it systematically. I demonstrated it earlier, or maybe I'll do another one. This is called dancing crane. This is another of the 18 law hands. And obviously, it's a stretch, right? I'm squatting. It's a half squat to one side and back up. But it's also resistance training, right? So we do squatting more for the legs than for the arms. And if we want to include the arms, we just have to include some other stuff. Okay, let's see. Okay, the knee exercise absolutely is what I needed today. Thank you. Okay, well, I didn't really teach it in detail, Andrew. If you want to learn it, I've got lots of ways to learn it, but if you can pick it up from that, good for you, but most people would need more systematic instruction. So when I demonstrate these exercises, it's a visual. Instead of talking with my hands the way I normally do, I'm talking with my body and demonstrating. When I teach an exercise, I go into much more detail. So especially if you're new to it, just understand that. Let's see. I find the horse stance used with certain tight fist moves leaves me feeling angry. Is there a way to do these movements in a way that isn't as aggressive? A happy punch, per se? Yes. And from my perspective, I don't know where you learned it that way, or if you learned it from me, but it should be the opposite. An exercise, for example, this is another one of the 18 law hands. It's also in the it's in the 8 brocades. I'm trying to get on camera here. So punching with angry eyes or wide eyes. It's just a punch. And then the way that I teach it is like this. Hi, 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 hi. I'm going to demonstrate it from the side so you can see. Hi, 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 hi. Now you can see I'm punching, but it's not a super hard punch. It's not like a karate punch, or it's not that powerful, but it's got some oomph to it, even though it's a Qigong exercise. Some schools do the 8 brocades like this. So all gentle, they don't ever use force. Some schools do it with a palm. All of this is fine. All of those are Qigong exercises. But when you do that exercise correctly, it balances anger. And remember, in the Chinese tradition, anger is okay. It's not, we vilify anger in the West because, and rightfully so, but we need more terms. What we really vilify is excessive anger. That's bad anger. That's no good. That's the anger that everybody knows about. It's when people are like angry and aggressive and it's all bad. Righteous anger is a good thing. Righteous anger is what changed the world, and that's healthy and normal and should flow at the appropriate time. And then so that's in the middle. Let's see, we've got a seesaw, right? Can go either way. So your anger is balanced, that's righteous anger. One side up, that's excessive anger, that's bad, no good. The other side up is deficient anger, that's also bad. People who don't have enough anger to get out of negative situations, that's also bad. So wherever you are on the seesaw, I hope this makes sense, like a seesaw. See me talking with my hands? If you're new to flowing Zen, this is how it is, folks. This is how I teach, with ridiculous hand gestures. Okay, so here's the seesaw. We want in the middle someplace. Righteous anger, healthy anger, appropriate anger. We don't want excessive anger, which is too much. We don't want deficient anger, which is too little. And an exercise like punching with wide eyes, when done correctly, you're not tensing the fist, you're not tensing the arm too much. you're breathing correctly, your horse stance is comfortable, you're in a Qigong state of mind or a Zen state of mind, then it will balance it out whichever direction you're in. Let me catch up here. Okay, so Elliot is asking, what's Qigong? Which is a great question, right? Maybe I broke down. Oh, I jumped ahead a little bit. Okay, well, I'll just answer that one now because we're here. What is Qigong? Well, I have lots of blog. I have 160 something blog posts on my website, flowingzen.com, to answer that question. But please get an answer. And I have a free, I think I put the link already just below this video that will take you to my free workshop, my free series, which is available now for a limited time. It's free. It's a really good training series. It's going to teach you really what Qigong is, and it'll also teach some Qigong. So if you're totally new to Qigong, great. That's awesome. And I really want to encourage those students because it's an amazing art. I don't want Qigong to be just, only to the people who've heard about it. So please learn more. My website is a great resource and I can lead you to other resources, but my job, yes, and my mission is to educate people and inspire them to learn more about Qigong. So if you're interested in basically the short answer is it's ancient Chinese self-healing art that involves breathing and gentle movements, and it's saved my life and I've gotten amazing results, and so have my students. So that's the simple answer for what is Qigong. How do you get such a perfect beard growth? That's one of the benefits of Qigong, obviously. No, just kidding. I've always had a nice beard. In fact, I had a nice beard in high school that allowed me to buy beer from my friends. Shh. I only did it once or twice. Let's see. Hey, George, good afternoon too. I'm like lost in the comments here. So let me see, find out where I was. Let's see, here's a question. I find that Qigong feels different depending on whether I focus on Dan Tien, on the moving bits like the arms and legs, the whole body, or the external world too. Is one better than the other? It depends on the teacher's approach or the method. So different teachers or different methods have different approaches. Basically, it's a meditative tool. So what do we do with the mind? And there are many different options. We can put the mind, the awareness. So that's a better word maybe. Do we put the awareness at Dan Tien? Do we put the awareness on the breathing? Do we put the awareness on the energy? Do we put the awareness on the target of the energy? So that exercise I did earlier, one finger Zen, for example, we're directing the Qi to the tip of the finger. Do we put the awareness there? Well, in my school, we do kind of all of these things depending on what techniques we're doing or what skills we're working towards or what goals we're working towards. So yes, if you're noticing different effects with doing different things, well, that makes sense. That's why there are so many different Qigong skills and different Qigong techniques. So I hope that makes sense that, yeah, we can do all of those things, and the method that you are choosing will help you to streamline that so that you're not just, practicing haphazardly. Let's see. Hey, Charles. Chuck. It says Charles here, but usually I call you Chuck. Somebody asked about Wing Chun, if it's only 300 years old. Yeah, it depends on how you map the history. It may even be a little bit less, depends on how far you trace it back. But I don't know why you would say only 300 years old. It's a pretty long time to me. And if you're familiar with the concept of on the shoulders of giants, was that Buckminster Fuller? Who coined that phrase? I can't remember who coined that phrase, but no style of Kung Fu is really only 200 or 300 years old because it was always built on the shoulder of giants. Kung Fu is ancient. And although the style itself may not be that old, it's built on a long-standing tradition. So for example, whatever you want to call the Kung Fu that I practice now, I teach Tai Chi, so let's look at my Shaolin Kung Fu. What is it now? What do I call it now? I've done Shaolin 5 Animals, Dragon and Tiger. Like, what do you call it? We could call it something totally new. I could invent a new style of Kung Fu, and technically it would be 1 minute old if I invented it right now, but it's thousands of years old because it's built on their knowledge. I didn't come up with, it's like Carl Sagan said, if you want to bake an apple pie from scratch, first you have to invent the universe. You can't really invent a Kung Fu style from scratch because we're inheriting way too much from thousands of years of tradition. Okay, this is a good question. Can you explain what smiling from the heart really means? No, I can't. I can't explain it so much as I can teach it. And I have a meditation someplace. If somebody can find a link to that, I think it's something about increasing your happiness. It's a blog post and there's a guided meditation there. If somebody could find it and paste it for me, Google something on my website or search my website for increase your happiness with this Zen technique, something like that. And in there somewhere is a guided meditation. That's honestly the best way to do it, to read that article and listen to the guided meditation and to experience it. And the reason I'm being difficult here, and I'm aware of that I'm being difficult, is because we're trying to explain something in intellectual terms that is very hard to explain. It's like trying to explain a color or a piece of music. And have any of you had this experience? This will maybe help. Whether it's like a wine connoisseur or a description of a beer, or even the description of food in like a fancy restaurant. You ever go to a nice restaurant and you read the discussion of the description of the food or the wine, and you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like these words, like, with wine, it's all, I swear they always use the word oaky, or hints of this or notes of that. And sometimes I read these words, I'm like, what are they talking about? That's because words don't really work when it comes to tastes, right? All we can do is get close. I mean, ultimately what you need to do is taste it. So my advice, Rick, is to go taste it rather than us babbling about the words to choose for something like smiling from the heart, which is a subtle Zen technique that's very beautiful and profound. And it's a central part of my teaching. I'd rather you go read that article and try it than me just, blab about what it actually is. Okay, next question. And let's see, time-wise, I was planning to do about an hour, but I'm always on time, except that I don't always finish on time. So let's just see how it goes and see how many questions I get through. Since this is my first YouTube, maybe I'll just keep going. I don't know how long I can go. Does YouTube ever limit it? I don't know. But I'm just going to keep going and cruise through some of these questions. Okay, for a beginner to Qigong, so a beginner, someone who's new to Qigong, who wants to start learning from you, me, do you recommend starting with your Qigong 101 class? When does this become available? Yeah, that's what the Qigong 101 is for. Actually, my Qigong 101, my Qigong 101 program is kind of like my flagship online program, and in many ways my flagship everything program now, with the way that I teach now. Now that I closed my brick and mortar studio and I teach mainly online and workshops and retreats, not mainly, that's entirely how I teach now because my studio is closed. The Qigong 101 is really an all levels course. I have a lot of people, I designed it for fresh beginners. So the answer is absolutely yes. But because of my systematic way of teaching, which I'll say unfortunately, because I wish more people would do this in the Qigong and Tai Chi world, my teaching is very systematic, but that's rare apparently. And many people tell me that they've been studying Qigong or Tai Chi for many years, but they never got the systematic training. Or maybe it's just my method. They like my approach to teaching and my approach to these arts. So I have a lot of people who have 10, 20, even 30 years of prior experience who take my Qigong 101 and tell me that they still love it. In fact, some people take it more than once. They take it many times because, look, it's the basics, folks. It's your extensive and deep understanding and practice of the basics of these arts that really determines how advanced you are. When I first started teaching, I had maybe 10 years of experience, and I had students come to my studio who wanted to learn from me. They took an intro class and they said, I want to learn from you. And I later found out that they had 20 years of experience. Why would somebody with 20 years of experience want to learn from somebody with 10? Well, maybe I got lucky in the way that I learned these arts. Maybe I had better teachers, or maybe just my brain. I've got a weird way of looking at these arts. Maybe that's helpful for them, but for some reason they wanted to learn from me. So the Qigong 101 is absolutely designed for beginners, and I think that many advanced practitioners will also find it beneficial. It will open next week. It opens once a year right now, and I know that's confusing to people. If you want to learn more about me and how I teach and the Qigong 101, click the link that I already put in the description about my free workshop, the Art of Healing workshop, and that will explain everything, including the Qigong 101 program, why it opens once a year. The short answer is because I'm a teacher, and we all start together. I'm there with you guys, and I have to give a lot of attention to my students the way that I teach, so I can't just take students in all. It's just the way it is. It's a wonderful program. It opens once a year. I have other stuff if you don't catch the registration window for some reason, if you're watching this later, you missed the window, okay, start with my other stuff, but then don't miss the 101 when it opens next time. Okay. Let's see, we're kind of in the martial arts question here. This is not really a question, but more of a comment. Jay says, major styles I hear of here in the USA are Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I guess Jeet Kune Do. A police officer I know recommends Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for self-defense. It seems good for one-on-one only. All of those are popular styles of martial arts. None of them are particularly internal or what I teach. And there are many more. You know, karate is huge, and mixed martial art, is that a style? Who knows these days? Muay Thai is very popular. Just plain old Western boxing, wrestling, all of these are basically martial arts. And it's a big, wide, confusing world out there. Whatever you end up practicing, find a good teacher, find something that works for you. If self-defense is your goal, it's a confusing world out there. You're going to get a lot of different answers from people. I have my opinions, but just try some different stuff. It's a lifelong path if you're doing martial arts. So just try some stuff, see what works for you. Don't get too dogmatic. That's my best advice. Learn a lot of different stuff, and then you'll start to form your own ideas later. And then add some Qigong in there, no matter what, because it's a complement to pretty much any martial art. So whatever martial art you're practicing, go add some Qigong to it as well. Let's see. So Pablo's responding to my question from earlier, said, excellent breakdown. Thanks for taking the time on the subject. I think many people are still taken in by the whole ancient Chinese secret marketing hook, which for those of you who remember, it was a commercial from years ago. I think it was a laundry commercial. If anybody remembers, they were asking what his secret was. He was saying ancient Chinese secret. And absolutely a lot of people get taken in by that. And there are absolutely ancient Chinese secrets in the world of Qigong and Tai Chi, but they're out now, and we don't have to be so mysterious. Like, for example, I often tell people that relaxing the jaw hinge, the whole jaw, the tongue, which relaxes the vagus nerve, that is absolutely an ancient Chinese secret in the Qigong tradition. But there you go, there's a secret. And I'm telling you, it's important, and it'll help you to get good results. So things don't have to be always so mysterious. Again, the same thing applies. Don't get wrapped up in dogma in the world of Qigong and Tai Chi. You can be led down the wrong path, and you can get lost for years that way. Just stay mindful, stay open. What is that advice? Be skeptical. Stay open, but be skeptical. I think that's good advice. Keep your mind open, but be skeptical. I think that's good general advice. Let's see. Someone says, it's great to have this live program. Good, I'm glad people enjoy this. I'm giving yoga classes in a fitness center. I'm starting Qigong in the beginning. People love it, yeah. People love Qigong, people love yoga. Some people prefer one over the other. I definitely prefer Qigong. Both arts are wonderful. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Qigong and meditation, but the world needs more of both, for sure. Let's see. Here's an interesting question. Oh, wait, did I jump ahead here? It seems to move my my chat box here. Sorry, I'm not new to these live webinar type of things, but I am new to YouTube. I haven't done this on YouTube yet, so I'm still getting the hang of it. Let's see. Annie asks, I'm doing the Yang 108 form sitting because of a knee injury. Any tips on how to adapt this form to a chair? Is it okay to just do the upper body movements? I noticed my back and abs are a bit sore. Okay, so I'm on a, by the way, this is kind of like a stool. It's a kneeling chair, but any stool would apply, and you just adapt it. So first of all, I'm a big fan of doing Qigong sitting because I think it's better. You don't see, the Yang style Tai Chi is meant to be done standing. It's a martial art. So if we're doing it sitting, we're not technically doing a martial art anymore. So why not just do Qigong exercises that were built for health? So for example, we could just do an exercise like pushing mountains, which I demonstrated earlier, or separating water, another of the 18 law on hands. We could do this sitting, and it's perfectly reasonable. It's a very reasonable adaptation because this is not a martial arts technique in the first place. Whereas if we're doing the Yang 108 form or the 24 pattern form, which is what I teach, so sure, we could do that. I'm kind of doing it, the form, sort of the way it would go, but without the feet. So can we do that? Sure. And one thing, I think this might help you, Annie, is you'll notice, I know it's hard to see my pants because I'm wearing black, but anyway, you just watch my torso. So I'll do that again. It's the beginning of the 24 pattern form. So regardless of what kind of chair you're on, this is totally doable. Notice that my torso is moving, right? This whole complex above here, this is my root here, but my torso is moving with the form, right? Because I'm relaxed. Now, of course, if I get further in the form and there's patterns that involve a kick, you don't need to go and try to do the kick from here. That would be awkward. You just skip it. But the truth is, when you're doing exercises like this, so what's the difference between this and Qigong? Is this Tai Chi or Qigong? Well, it's a good question because I learned an exercise exactly like this called the double helix, or which is obviously a modern name. I don't know where the teacher got the name. He was Chinese, but he called it double helix, which of course can only be after they discovered DNA. Well, maybe that's not true. Maybe there was a concept of a double helix before that. I'm not sure actually. But anyway, this movement exists in both Qigong and Tai Chi. When we do it in the Tai Chi world, let's see if I can get this on camera. So it's like this, right? And then we add a stance and we add a martial. So what are we doing? We can be doing many different things. So I don't have a partner here available, but in Tai Chi, when we do this pattern like this, sometimes called flying diagonally, or usually called flying diagonally. That's what I call it. So what are we doing? Well, there's a martial arts application. You could be grabbing someone's arm here. I'm locking their arm against here, and I'm really up and close against them, and I'm going for a throw. Or I could be locking their arm with this hand, pulling it down, coming underneath their arm, and sort of jabbing them in the throat. Or I can go over their arm, also grabbing, and jab them in the throat with the fingertips, a throat jab. And if all that sounds violent, well, it's a martial art. That's what Tai Chi is, one of the most violent martial arts out there because it's designed as true self-defense. I mean, that's part of it's a warrior art, so it's not pussyfooting around. It's if you understand the martial applications of Tai Chi, it's deadly. It doesn't mean we go around killing people, obviously, and it doesn't mean it makes us aggressive. It's just a martial art, and that's part. It's funny because in my experience, the more truly martial it is, the more real and devastating and deadly even, the more spiritual you can make it if you want to go that path. If you want to turn it into a mind technique and a spiritual art, you can. Anyway, that's Tai Chi. That's what it is. It's a martial art. So you can try your moves like that, but my advice to you would be just to treat it as Qigong, the exercises. So that means you could even just take one or two moves and do them over and over again and groove with them, get into the zone, flow, breathe. Don't worry about the form. Just what you're doing is you're breathing and flowing and trying to get the benefits of Qigong rather than doing Tai Chi proper. The question is, do you think that doing martial arts is a step up from just playing exercise and goes deeper than just exercise or Qigong? Okay, exercise and Qigong are not the same thing, so that's a tricky question. But I'm a big fan of martial arts. I think it has to be taught well. I think if you have a bad teacher in the martial arts, it can be bad. But so can anything. I mean, weightlifting, if you have a bad teacher, can be really dangerous and bad for you. But obviously, I'm a lifelong practitioner of martial arts, so I love it. So I'm a big fan. But Qigong is something different. Qigong fills a role that really nothing else does. Sometimes Tai Chi fills that role if you've got a very good teacher and you're practicing it as an internal martial art. But Qigong is something different, and it's my mission to spread that in the world because I think the world desperately needs it, and it's not out there. It's not happening. I mean, you'll see. Learn some Qigong from me or learn some really good Qigong, and you'll see that it's, although it can count as exercise, it's not the same thing as Western exercise at all. Next question is, finding a teacher is not easy. If one is not yet defined, which exercise would you recommend to start with? Okay, so I have an interesting question for you. I think your name is Asli. I'm not sure how to say it. It looks hard to say. Would be happy to learn how to say it. Why are you asking me? If you're asking me for a reason. For some reason, you would trust my answer. You trust me on some level. Maybe from my blog or my videos or something. There's something, you're asking me the question. You're interested in my answer. If you're interested in my answer, then the answer should be obvious. Learn from me. I teach online now. This is the reason I closed my brick and mortar studio, was so that I can teach people all over the world. You've got people in this webinar right now who've learned from me. I mean, there are many different ways to learn from me, even online. You can click the link in the description to take you to my free workshop. You can start learning for free there, and then join my Qigong 101 when it opens if you're so inspired. But learn from me. I take teaching very seriously. I pride myself on being a good teacher. So years ago, before I started teaching online, it was heartbreaking to me. People would say, I can't find a good teacher locally. Now that answer doesn't apply anymore, because whether or not you like my teaching style, and I'm not really good with taking compliments, but here's one compliment that I do accept and I do acknowledge about myself. I am a good teacher. I am a good Qigong teacher. Even people who dislike me for various reasons, whatever reasons, maybe they don't like the beard, or they don't like Americans, or they don't like my attitude, most of them will still concede that I am a very good Qigong teacher. So if you're going to ask me what to do if you can't find a good teacher, learn from me. In fact, a lot of people choose to learn from me even when they do have a good local teacher, because Qigong is an art that you're going to learn. Look, let's be honest, it's the 21st century already. Can we just accept the fact that you're going to learn Qigong from more than one person? I want you to fall in love with the art of Qigong. If I make you fall in love with it, then you can learn from me for many years. I got many years of material, but sooner or later, you're going to learn from somebody else. I guarantee it. If I succeed in helping you to fall in love with the art. If someone else turns you on to the art of Qigong, now you're in my world and you are interested in what I have to say, learn from me for a little while. So the answer is yes, I know a very good teacher. He happens to have a really well-groomed beard. But seriously, I'm joking, but seriously, my Qigong 101 program does not disappoint. It is a very well thought out, well delivered, well taught program. You can access it from anywhere in the world. Pretty much as long as you speak English or understand English, which I assume you do, you can now learn Qigong anywhere. And I have students pretty much everywhere in the English speaking world. So that's United States, Canada, a lot of Mexico because they speak English. I have students all over the world if they happen to speak English. So like Sanja is from Croatia but speaks English. So okay, anybody who speaks English is fine. Obviously the UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, India. There's lots of English speakers there. So anywhere there are English speakers, I now have students, because if they're looking for good instruction, you'll find it here. So there's my answer. Yeah, I guess Pepper took off once I took the sword out, which is a smart dog. He knows. Let's see, question. Great stuff. Are you familiar with the famous Qigong master, Professor Dan Tien, and his experiments on external Qi manifested influence? Some stuff on the CIA Freedom of Information Act library online. I did. Yes, I'm definitely familiar with Dan Tien. I actually learned some of his Qigong years ago. He's very famous in the Qigong world. I don't know where he is these days. He's sort of disappeared. This is the first I've heard of the CIA stuff, so conspiracy theory, anybody? Maybe that's why he disappeared. I thought he went into seclusion, which is something that a lot of Qigong masters do. I don't know anything about the CIA stuff. I looked at his studies years ago about external Qi manifestation is basically, it's pretty woo-woo for some people. Some people do not believe in it, some people do. But it's the ability to affect in this case, I think it was some sort of cells or something, with his projected chi. And if you have images of like Star Wars or knocking people down, that's not what it was. It was just simple, like, can he do anything to, like, I think it was E. coli or something. Can you do something to that? That's what the study was about. And I looked at the study, but not carefully, so I can't really comment intelligently on it, but it was interesting, and I found his Qigong to be interesting. And from all accounts, he does seem to be a very powerful master. It looks like somebody posted the article in there. Oh, Pablo posted it. The article I was talking about in terms of the smiling from the heart and the increasing your happiness. So that's in the comments section right there. Thank you. Well, both Pablo and Isabel posted it. Okay, next question is, can the small universe be taught online or without close supervision? I read about this and it was really piqued my curiosity, but I'm not sure I want to attempt it without supervision. Simple answer is don't attempt it without supervision. Just don't do it. I wrote a whole article about this, about the small universe. Can it be taught online? Never say never. I've been burned in the past by saying this can or can't be done. So you would have to experiment to be sure. I do not teach it online at present. Okay, so small universe, let me back up, sorry. Small universe, Dan Tien in Chinese, is an advanced Qigong technique in my approach where you circulate the Qi or direct the Qi along the Ren and Du meridians. So that means that you're circulating the Qi, let's see, how do I do this? Hard to get stuff on camera. Down the Ren channel, which starts here, down through the perineum, then up the spine, around, this is the Du channel, around, jump the gap, and then you create a loop. Very simple, also very sophisticated and very subtle, and a very advanced art, in my opinion. Some teachers teach it early to beginners. I don't subscribe to that method. I think it's problematic. And I've seen a lot of the problems. In fact, for years, which is what prompted me to write that blog post about the small universe many years ago. I don't remember when I wrote it, but I think it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. And what prompted me to write it even back then was that I had received so many emails from people coming from other schools who had practiced either this technique, the small universe, often called the microcosmic orbit. In Chinese, it's the same, Xiao Tian, which you can translate in either small universe or microcosmic orbit. And they had tried it or learned it and maybe didn't learn it well or whatever, but they sort of messed themselves up. Look, it's just like anything in life. If you do weightlifting wrong, you can mess yourself up. If you try to change your diet and you mess it up, you can mess yourself up. Qigong is no different, especially the more advanced any art is. Yes, you can mess yourself up. You're fixable. You're not going to explode. You're not going to create a rift in the space-time continuum, but you can definitely develop some like headaches or anxiety or like problems by practicing Qigong incorrectly. Not the Qigong that I teach on a basic level is very, very safe. There's a huge margin for error with that Qigong, but not so much with the small universe. So my advice is just leave it aside. There's no need to practice the small universe as a beginner. Even the first several years of practice, there's no need for it. Save it for later. You can learn it later. So that should answer the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, can I teach it online? I don't know yet. I will experiment, but I have to find a way to experiment safely. So I have to have guinea pigs who are advanced enough that if something goes wrong, we can fix it. And really what this is going to be people who I know probably in person and will see at some point. Like I'll see them in person either in my Costa Rica retreat or at one of my retreats. Somehow I will be able to see them in person later to confirm and to make sure that it's working. But anyway, if I teach it online, it will not be until I know that people have done a certain amount of training with me. That would be the only way that I would want to teach it. I'm just not interested in teaching it otherwise because, look, if you really want to learn it, then come learn it in person. It's an amazing, sophisticated, life-changing art, and I travel around the world to learn it, so you can too. But here's what will probably happen. I'll teach it in person. We'll film some of it. I'll put it online for review, and that'll be the start of some of it. That's how it worked in the past. But if you're expecting me to teach the small universe online soon, don't. I'm not teaching it anytime soon. Let's see. I'm going to put my glasses on here. That'll help. Okay, so Sonia asks, Sifu, how do I know that there is enough cleansing of an individual organ? Can you recommend some optimal period, week, or month? Uh, no, it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of results. If you're just doing a cleansing, so we have Qigong exercises to cleanse. We say organ, but really what we mean is organ meridian system. We mean like the liver meridian. So here's my liver, roughly, it's somewhere around here. And then the liver meridian starts here on my toe, comes up here, right? So, but we're talking about both. And that's bilateral, by the way. The organ itself is not bilateral, but the meridian is. When we cleanse an organ, we're cleansing the meridian as well. This is Chinese medicine and Qigong theory. So if we're cleansing an organ, either we're just doing it as a proactive thing, we're trying to cleanse various meridians and get the benefits there, or we're trying to do something specific. So if we're trying to do something specific, like cleanse the liver meridian for a specific reason, what's that reason? And there should be some measurable results there, right? This is a big part of my teaching. If you're new to my teaching, I always come back to results. Results. You know you're doing Qigong correctly because you are getting results. That's it. What do I mean by results? Well, basically benefits. There are some benefits that you're getting. So, this is a good example. I mentioned in the beginning, these are my 1-power readers, like one-time magnification. I have a short course on healing your eyes, which works great for this. I'm basically farsighted. Like I have trouble reading stuff. Happens once you're in your 40s, I guess. When I don't do those exercises, I feel like I need stronger glasses. And then as soon as I do the exercises, my eyes get better. It's really quite quick, actually. Within a week or two of starting the exercises, I'm lazy. Yes, I get lazy too. When I start doing the exercises, my eyes get better and I'm fine. Like it's very simple. Can I read stuff or not? Pick up a bottle of something. Can I read it with the glasses? Yes or no? That's the kind of results I'm talking about. It might be totally different subject. It might be depression, anxiety. It might be chronic pain. One way or another, there's got to be a measure. And the question is, are you it doesn't mean that everything is gone. It doesn't mean your life, your life is perfect or your pain from 20 years ago is suddenly gone. It means that you are seeing improvement. So are you seeing improvement? If so, then maybe you've done enough cleansing for now, or maybe we can come back to it later. Okay. Okay, this is a good question, which I will hit on the head. So Rick asks, or Rich, sorry, not Rick. Some say you can't learn advanced sets from a book or the internet. It has to be done in person. What do you say to that? Bollocks. That's what I have to say to that. That's a British word. So my British friends will enjoy that, I hope. It's nonsense. It's absolutely not true. And here's the catch. I used to say the same thing. So here's where I've gotten burned. I shouldn't have said it because I didn't experiment. Those who say it can't be done shouldn't interrupt those who are doing it, and I am doing it. At this point, it's laughable. People who say that are making fools of themselves because I've taught so many people online who are getting results. It works. I mean, you can talk to my students even in this group or in our Facebook group or someplace. These students learn from me entirely online, are getting results. How can you say it doesn't work? You might say, oh, learning in person is different. And that I will agree with. Learning in person is different than learning online. However, here's what I've come to realize. They both have advantages and they both have disadvantages. So obviously learning online is more convenient. That's an advantage over learning in person. Learning in person, one of the big advantages is actually the community that you build. So when we go to Costa Rica, the friendships that you forge there, the camaraderie, the group feeling is something that's hard to do online. So that's an advantage. An advantage of online learning is that people who are shy or introverted can learn rather than going into a group. An advantage of learning in person is I can see you and get a real feel for what's going on right in the moment. But of course, online, sometimes I can see that as well. We do live video conferences where I can see the students as well. So, but the question is, can you learn Qigong online? Yes, of course you can. And of course, the people who are saying it are almost always old timers who have built their teaching model in a different way, and they're afraid of losing business, quite frankly. That's what look, let's be honest, that's what it is. And I actually relate to that. I know what it's like. I'm a small business owner. I've struggled with this for many, many years. But I have to speak the truth. And the truth is that you can learn Qigong online. You can. It's being done all the time. If you don't believe me, actually, I've written a couple of articles on this, and I really hit this on the head there as well, like with some quotes and stuff. And I've got video testimonials, and you can come into my groups and talk to people. You can come to Costa Rica and talk to these people who've gotten results just from purely learning online. To say that it doesn't work when it obviously is makes you look like a fool. To say that it doesn't work when you haven't even tested it, and that was my mistake. And I guess to my credit is that I reversed my position because I started testing it and I was like, oh shit, this works. So I had to eat my words and come back and say, you know what? It does actually work. Let me test it some more. And that's been my evolution as I kept testing different methods of learning and teaching online until, I'm not saying it won't change anymore, but my Qigong 101 program is now the pinnacle of that. It's the ideal combination of different methods of learning online that seems to work the best for people. And does it work? Hell yes, it absolutely works. Let's see. Okay, this is an interesting question. To build my abs, which is best, sitting or standing? I'm suffering from a back injury and also under long-term chiro care. When you say your abs, I assume what you really mean is your core muscles. So, and just very quickly, I don't know why I'm getting up here, but I'll get up anyway. Yeah, no, this will be helpful. So the abs, the core muscles, it's a complex series of muscles. When most people think of abs, they think of six-pack abs, like the washboard abs, right? Like that's what they want. It's cosmetic. Now, okay, those are also useful, but those aren't your core muscles. Those are on the surface, which is why you can see them. And to flex those muscles, you kind of go down, like you're bracing, like someone's going to punch you in the stomach, and you're bracing those muscles. Those are your rectus abdominal muscles, right? You kind of feel like you're pulling your sternum down to your pubic bone, right? You're clenching that way. Now the core muscles, your transverse abdominis, some of the other ones, the psoas really could be considered a core muscle. They're much deeper, and they also run all around. They're kind of like a girdle, like women used to wear, sort of ancient torture device. But they run all around, and they're deeper, and it's different. When you engage your transverse abdominis, for example, watch, I go up. So rectus abdominis is down, that's your abs. Transverse abdominis is up. You engage it, you pull in your belly button, and you go up. So I just wanted to make that distinction, first of all. Second of all, you probably have it in your head that you need to strengthen your core for your back. And that's not untrue, but my experience is, especially since Qigong is my thing, that when it comes to back pain, and I'm speaking as someone who has had a life of back pain, basically, my adult life, and I've fixed my back pain multiple times, including severe back pain. It has come back. I've sort of an idiot and re-injured it. How many times have I called myself an idiot in this one webinar? Anyway, I do it jokingly. But my experience is this. If you want to go strengthen your core, go do Pilates. Go do something else. But when it comes to Qigong and healing back pain, don't miss the mental-emotional connection. And in my opinion, the number one problem with back pain in America and maybe even worldwide is that we view it as a physical problem. And there's a lot of research to suggest this more and more so, that, and in my opinion, it is your back pain, your back problems are at least 50% mental emotional, and probably more. I would go so far as to say that some back pain is 90% emotional. For example, a lot of people think, oh, well, I have a herniated disc, and that's absolutely true. They may have a herniated disc that's appeared on an MRI or whatever. But here's the confusing thing. You have cases, research of people with herniated discs with no back pain. Nothing. They have obviously herniated discs that look like they should hurt, but they don't. Then you've got people who do not have herniated discs who do have back pain, and then every place in between. So it's not as clear-cut as people would think. People like to view back pain as physical, mechanical. Something is out of place or wrong. And my experience as a patient of this and a teacher of helping people, look at the mental emotional issue. That's what we're going to use Qigong for. That's what's neglected almost always. You can almost always go deeper into clearing mental emotional blockages, and that's what's going to help you out. So don't try to just use Qigong to fix your core. I mean, sure, we could find ways to do that, like some of those exercises I showed earlier, but use Qigong to fix the mental emotional stuff. And then if you really want to just, I mean, I can't imagine a more streamlined way to build your core muscles than to go do something like Pilates. Do that for a little while, and then you'll build your core muscles, and then continue doing your Qigong. Okay, so same follow-up is that you also have a neck injury. So all of this is related to posture. That's true. But your neck injury and your neck pain also have a mental emotional component. Guaranteed. I guarantee it. Okay, thanks, Chuck. Thanks for the kind words. Chuck says, I'm an excellent teacher, online and live. So Chuck was in my studio before I closed it. I'm sure he's a little bit sad that I had to close it, but he was a good student while I was there, and he's one of my certified instructors. Let's see. If you have floaters in the eyes, will the eye exercises remove them? I can't remember if anybody has told me that they have. My feeling towards the eye exercises that I teach is they just bring chi and energy to the eyes in general. So you can check the comments on the blog post, see if anybody talks about floaters. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can't imagine it hurting, but really floaters in Chinese medicine, I can't remember. I think it's the liver meridian, but it's a more holistic thing. It's not just bringing to the chi to the eyes will help, but also holistically healing the whole system is usually what helps. So for example, I've had students tell me that they got rid of floaters without doing the eye exercises. They were just practicing the regular Qigong that I teach. Off topic, Dim-mak factor fiction. Just a tiny little time. Dim-mak or Dian Shui in Mandarin is death touch. Factor fiction, probably a little bit of both. I think there's something to it, at least with these past masters who I mentioned were practicing 6 or 7 hours a day. I just don't know how much to believe. I'm not in pure disbelief. Like, I don't think it's totally fake. I think most of the Dim-mak that people purport to do these days, if you see them doing it, I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of absolute nonsense on YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. That's the truth of it. So it's very hard to separate, truth and reality from on something like YouTube. But a lot of the stuff, say the vast majority, say maybe 90-something% of it that you see out there is utter nonsense. But I'm talking theoretically, like, is it possible to disrupt somebody's energy with a gentle touch? I'm going to remain agnostic. I'm going to say, I don't know. I've never seen it, but I've met a couple people who have. And I don't think they're lying. So the question is, were they influenced somehow? Was it real? Was there something else going on? And I've certainly felt strong energy. I can feel energy, and I can do it to my students. Like, I can only do it. So I say only, but I can only project energy for healing. But people can definitely feel that. I just can't stop an attacker. Somebody who's trying to hurt me, I can't stop them with chi or with a gentle touch. Somebody's attacking me and trying to harm me, and I want to stop them. I'm going to hit them with a chair or a fist, and I'm going to hit them hard, right? That's how I'm going to throw them down. Or no, my number one favorite kung fu technique, I'm out of there, folks. I'm running. So I'm not going to try to zap them with a Dim-mak. So that's my best answer for now, is I remain agnostic. Yeah, Ray, that's a good point. Ray says, I respectfully suggest we do not know how learning online will change, improve as VR and AR improve. Absolutely. And I'll be experimenting with all those things. And all those teachers who didn't get on into the new technology, they're going to be left behind, and they're going to continue to say their untrue statements. You can't learn Qigong in virtual reality. Whatever. Let those teachers say their stuff. Some of them may even be good teachers, but they're not being intellectually honest with themselves. They're not. Because Qigong can be learned online. what the truth, the sliver of truth in what they're saying is that it's a different experience learning Qigong in person. I would never say don't learn Qigong in person, but do go find a good teacher, get that experience if you can. Come to Costa Rica with us; it's an amazing experience. But for the people who can't learn in person, or people who desperately need Qigong and need to learn online, and those people, including the many, like hundreds of people who've already helped online to get results with online only learning, yeah, I'll continue to help those people. Let's see. Okay, let's do one or two more questions and call it a day, because this is dragging out and I don't know how long to do this thing. It's already an hour and a half, so I should probably wrap it up at some point. Yeah, Barbara. So I'm not saying stop with the chiropractic. I'm saying address the mental emotional component from many angles. Qigong is great for that, especially in the Qigong 101 when we get to the organ systems and the organ emotion connection and the 5 animal play. But use your other methods as well. We have to often attack things from multiple angles. When is the next trip to Costa Rica? It's in July every year. Let's see. Let's see if I can quickly post the link here. Let's see if this works. Can I do it myself? Here's a link. I just posted in the comments of the dates for 2019 and a lot of info and details and stuff on there. So you can look there if you're interested in the retreat. So Pablo's asking about the addictive refractory qualities of constant chiropractic treatment. I think it's tricky with anything that, if we, and I think this turns into the realm of finding a good teacher, a good practitioner, somebody that you trust. The question is, do you become sort of addicted to chiropractic treatment or massage or even acupuncture? Some people think it helps. It happens in acupuncture too. I don't know. I don't have enough data to make an educated comment on that. But I'll tell you this, what has served me well and my personality well, and I assume all of you who are interested in these arts, is self-empowerment, self-healing. Nobody's ever going to care about me more than me, right? And I've had some pretty caring doctors, but when it comes to getting out of pain or my own battles with depression and anxiety, it's not that you shouldn't see other practitioners. I'm a big fan of complementary care, but I think the missing piece is often something like Qigong, self-healing, doing it yourself. What can you do yourself? And let's push that envelope. I mean, self-heal. I have done the most miraculous things that I've ever seen in the worlds of acupuncture. And I went to acupuncture college and I've seen some of the world's best in acupuncture. And I've also seen some of the world's best in chiropractic because I had some colleagues and I've gone to some conferences. Anyway, I've just been exposed to some of the world's best chiropractors and they can do incredible things. None of that, I've seen all of that in Qigong as well. Maybe not the exact same things, but Qigong is on par with those things. So Qigong, and I'm talking about doing it yourself, the realm of possibility in terms of the overall power of this medicine is right up there with the world's best acupuncture and the world's best chiropractic. So this is my thing. Acupuncture is, of course, related to what I do, but Qigong is my thing. So first and foremost, I want people to add a strong and powerful Qigong practice to their daily life and really see how powerful it can be. Because what happens, and Barbara, this could be you too, that most people, they discover Qigong, they use it a little bit, but they don't really push it. They don't see how far it can go. And as far as however far I've pushed Qigong in all these years, which is further than most people, there's no way I'm done. I'm still amazed at the depth of this art. You still plateau and realize, wow, there's another level here. You jump a level and you realize I can go deeper. So I'm really interested in that aspect, in the self-healing aspect, self-empowerment, doing what I can do, participating in my own healing. And then, yes, I do go see other healers sometimes, but then sometimes I stop. I just swear off all healers sometimes just to say, okay, what can I do myself? so that if there's any addictive stuff or anything going on, or if I've become, like, let's say, reliant or dependent, or it's a crutch of sorts, the chiropractic or acupuncture, whatever it is, well, let me back off and just use Qigong and see what I can do. Okay. Okay, Sherry says, healthy aging is accomplished for me with your 5-phase Qigong model. That's it's part of the method that I teach. The 5-phase routine is part of the basic method that I teach. My Tai Chi and Qigong students all report healing and better health in many ways. Thanks for online classes. You're very welcome, Sherry. Thanks for that feedback. When is the Qigong 101 open? Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I've updated the website. Next week, Tuesday, it's opening. Okay, so click the link in the description here. Let me get the link here. Hang on a second. I'm going to multitask here. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't multitask. It's not very zen, but I'm done multitasking. That's the free self-healing workshop, which will give you a strong intro to what I teach, how I teach. I'll teach you all about Qigong, not just Qigong itself, but about Qigong, which is sometimes more important. And it'll also tell you about the Qigong 101 program, which will open next week. And we'll start, well, actually, we hit the ground running before the holidays with the holiday stress, relieving holiday stress course. And then we'll start the program proper in the new year. Okay, I'm going to call it a day because I've been going for over 90 minutes here. I hope this was helpful. And I know some of you will be watching the replay, so I hope the replay is also helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. And please give me some feedback. I know you can continue to comment, but if you found this helpful on YouTube, I know people have their preferred platforms. So if for whatever reason you really enjoy YouTube and that works for you, let me know, because I'm a teacher, so tools are whatever. I'll use the tools that help you guys most. If everybody really wants me to go on YouTube, I will. Okay. I haven't done a lot with YouTube. Mostly I've done Facebook and my blog. But if YouTube is what you want, let's do it. But you got to give me feedback. If you don't give me feedback, how am I going to know? So if you found this helpful, please let me know. And definitely feel free to nudge me and poke me and prod me into doing. Oh, that was kind of a punch. Don't punch me, or punch me at your own risk. Just kidding. Prod me and poke me and nudge me into doing more YouTube, and I will. My life is just generally very full. I have a lot of pokers in the fire because I work very, very hard at what I do. But if you keep pestering me long enough, I will start to implement something and go in that direction if time willing, time allowing. And my goal is to help you. So if something would be helpful for you, I want to do it. So just so you know that. I enjoyed it. I love these Q&As. They're fun for me. I enjoy answering questions. It's fun for me to connect with all of you, especially all over the world. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you will check out the free workshop I'm offering. I hope to work with some of you in my Qigong 101, or to see you on my blog or my Facebook group or someplace out there in the world. And thank you. Have a wonderful day or evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. And I'm going to sign off. Thanks so much, folks, for joining me. This is Sifu Anthony, and I'm going to sign off now.